So it is already July 16th of 2024, and we have the Acolyte episode 8 just ahead of us. The only good thing that's coming out of this show, by the way, is the fact that it's finally coming to an end, to a conclusion. This way we don't have to deal with any of Leslye Headland's nonsense anymore. And we all know the drama that's been happening between, of course, the Walt Disney Company and Lucasfilm has been getting quite messy behind the scenes, and how a lot of it has to do with the Amandla Stenberg firing situation and many different updates around that whole drama. Let's get into it. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about the Acolyte episode 7 that we saw just last week is it was equally as bad as episode 3, if not worse, because of how similar it really was to that third episode, with very little improvement there. We all know that there's a lot of wrong with the Acolyte. It's not only a canon breaker, but it also has a lot of terrible storytelling, writing, directing, acting. The execution of the show is subpar, and let's not forget about the usage of DEI above proper storytelling and how they actually are engaged in the story. Now, what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with Amandla Stenberg going head-to-head with the Disney executives and those like Bob Iger after her recent firing from various Lucasfilm projects because of multiple factors. We're going to get into a lot of this. Now, what's interesting about this is that we know that Leslye Headland has been in a back-and-forth battle between the Disney heads for several reasons, but now it's including Amandla Stenberg, and exactly why. Now, specifically, of course, on top of everything here with the Acolyte episode 8 looming for Disney Plus, and those like Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy heading into endless damage control over the series, one major development now has more to do with the ongoing drama happening behind the scenes that involves more to do with Amandla Stenberg and her recent Lucasfilm firing situation. A crucial part of this new update involves how Amandla was indeed recently fired and axed from several Lucasfilm projects that were planned to center on the High Republic era that would bring a return for the characters Osha and May in different timelines than the Acolyte Season 1 itself. The firing of Stenberg from multiple projects didn't just have to do with Bob Iger's cost-cutting measures and his right-sizing technique of reducing which actors and actresses would return in Star Wars or not, but this mainly had to do with Stenberg's diss track music video on Instagram that, as it turns out, Disney executives had warned Stenberg that this would create even further backlash and requested the removal of the music video twice, where of course she refused. Another shocking turn of events is that Stenberg was demanding a roughly 35% pay increase for her multi-million-dollar contract deal that she had lost, which was going to involve multiple cameos in various Star Wars movies and TV shows, along with the Acolyte spin-offs. Once Stenberg was removed from those spin-offs, Disney decided to make a quick decision to axe those projects immediately, as they didn't want to deal with a full-fledged recast. To make the drama even worse now is that Stenberg is already playing the race card, and even playing the victim against the Disney heads, and is warning to take legal action against the Walt Disney Company in a desperate move to get things done her way. Now guys, before I move on, let me just say this. Now look, we know a lot of people out there try to make a legal case with Disney and they fail because, well, they don't really know what they're talking about, they don't know what they're dealing with. In the case of Gina Carano, she has a rightful decision and a rightful move to go against Disney, which may very well go somewhere. But a lot of those out there that have had problems with Disney really put it upon themselves. Those like, of course, for example, we knew that Brie Larson had a very big problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how her contract was so complex and pretty much shady under Disney's wing, and that's exactly why she blamed them for really creating a series of false promises about her career moving forward after the Marvels. I mean, there's a lot more to talk about that as well. But what's interesting about this in particular is the fact that it didn't just have to do with Bob Iger's cost containment plan, or the fact that they are cutting back on which actors and actresses that they're hiring, but a lot of this had to do with her diss track on Instagram, which, by the way, still stands on her Instagram to this very day, that literally went after Star Wars fans and the backlash over the Acolyte, all because everyone didn't like the show when it comes to the directing, the writing, the acting, the execution. That's the real thing above the problems with DEI, alright? So, DEI is a problem with the show, make no mistake, but the real issue, as far as I'm concerned, is the writing, the acting, the directing, and everything with that. Now, moving onwards, Leslye Headland, of course, not surprisingly, is also, of course, getting involved in this ongoing battle against the Disney heads along with Kathleen Kennedy in a desperate move to reinstate the Acolyte Season 2 after it was cancelled by Bob Iger behind the scenes. Right now, the Stenberg firing situation from multiple projects, along with Leslye and Kathleen fighting for Amandla's rehiring at Lucasfilm, is creating a massive divide between the Disney higher-ups and the Lucasfilm story group, and those like Kennedy and Headland. Stenberg reportedly is going to take official legal action if nothing is resolved by the end of August, as they head into the fall, which is when those Acolyte spin-off projects were supposed to be announced. Now, Stenberg reportedly created so much noise at Lucasfilm that the drama rattled throughout the entire Walt Disney Company, and that the Disney heads are already preparing an emergency meeting over the current situation from the Star Wars brand. Stenberg also even blamed the fans as the root cause of her firing behind the scenes, as this is one major part of her argument and labeling Bob Iger as making an unfair decision to her background as someone who is non-binary. And that's another thing, by the way, guys, about Stenberg, is that she flip-flops. At one point she says that she is non-binary, and then another point she says she's part of the LGBTQ community and that she is a part of that. So she doesn't really know what background she has. She always goes back and forth, and this scenario, I think, is only going to make things worse for Bob Iger. It's going to put more pressure on the board of directors. We know that they're all panicking over how they're beginning to eat their own, and this is exactly why I said those at Disney eventually do turn on each other when things don't go their way. Look at how Kathleen Kennedy and Leslye Headland, as we talked about this for a couple of days now, have been going against the Disney executives, all because of what's been going on with the Acolyte and how Bob Iger was put into a corner to make some kind of a decision by pulling back on those projects, by letting go of Stenberg from various projects, and how now that's creating a serious shakeup between Disney and Lucasfilm HQ. Not a big shocker, by the way. I mean, we've had certain scenarios like this happen with the Marvel Cinematic Universe for Marvel Studios and the Walt Disney Company, but it was very, very brief. It was very much something that did not last such an elongated time. But now with Lucasfilm, things are just going in a downward spiral. I mean, we got one other TV show coming out this year for Star Wars called Skeleton Crew. I think it's going to be abysmal yet again. It won't be anywhere near as bad as The Acolyte, I promise you that. But one thing about the Skeleton Crew series is that it is going to be something that's going to feel not so much like Star Wars again. It's something that really kind of shifts away from that tone once more. So overall, I would really like to hear what everyone has to say about the whole Stenberg scenario happening, of course, between herself, the Disney executives, etc., etc. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.